If the graph of a polynomial function has several turning points, the function can have a relative maximum and a relative minimum. First note the relative minimum. If we were to look at just a particular region of the graph, it may appear that this is the minimum of the function. But when we consider the entire graph, this is only the minimum for a particular interval of the function, but not the absolute minimum, so we call it a relative minimum. Similarly, the relative maximum here, if we were to only consider part of the graph, it may appear that this is the maximum. But when we consider the entire graph, we recognize that this is only the maximum on a particular interval, and so we call it a relative maximum. Problem 5. Identifying a relative maximum and minimum. What are the relative maximum and minimum of the function f of x equals x cubed plus 3x squared minus 24x? Use a graphing calculator, or Desmos, to find a relative maximum and relative minimum. First, the relative maximum. Graph the function, f of x, and if using a graphing calculator, use the calculate feature, establish a left bound, a right bound, and a guess, and let the calculator indicate to you that the maximum here, or relative maximum, is at x equals -4, y equals 80. On Desmos, of course, we would graph the function and then simply click on or very near to the relative maximum, and that point of interest would first become selected and then labeled with its coordinates. To find a relative minimum, a similar process on a graphing calculator. Graph the function and then use the second calculate minimum function of the calculator. Establish a left bound, a right bound, a guess, and then check out what the calculator tells you at the bottom of the screen, that particular minimum, or relative minimum in this case, is at x equals 2, y equals -28. But once again on Desmos, after graphing your function, you're only 2 clicks away from identifying and labeling your relative minimum. And we can state the relative maximum is 80 at x equals -4, and the relative minimum is -28 at x equals 2. Your turn. What are the relative maximum and minimum of f of x equals 3x cubed plus x squared minus 5x?